Hey everyone, welcome back into On Isles Time, episode number 25. The NHL draft has come and gone. The Islanders selected Malte Gustafsson with their 13th overall selection. Not who we saw coming with that pick, but the best player available at the board. And it's been a crazy week and a half since our last episode in the NHL. Lots of trades, lots of movement. So free agency coming up. We're going to break down what we think the Islanders are going to do going forward, even though we don't think it's going to be much.
Yeah, definitely a quieter offseason, I think, than what we've seen in the past. At least in terms of the Islanders. Yeah, like you said, there's been a bunch of big trades going on around the league. A lot of teams have improved recently. The Islanders obviously have taken Gustafsson 13th. That's about it. But again, it's June 28th as of right now. Obviously July 1st coming up with that opening of free agency. Still plenty of time for moves to be made, but yeah, definitely expecting a quieter offseason.
Given the Islanders roster, we would probably, again, prefer them to sell off some pieces. We're going to get into that in a little bit onto why. But yeah, not much really expected. It's really just hard for them to make changes, just given the cap space, the players they already have, the contracts they already have. So if, I said I wanted to see some changes, Darsh seems like he's waiting to do it next year after next season, or maybe if they're bad this year, then, deadline sell-offs. We'll see when we get there. But again, we'll discuss all that up and coming. We're going to talk about, like I said, the crazy stuff going on around the league. The Islanders draft, where they only had 5 picks, which is a low number, especially compared to last year. They had 1 million draft picks. The re-signings they've had so far, Anders Lee, and then just other news and trade rumors going on. So I guess you could call this our, off-season preview show. I mean, we did the draft preview on the last episode, but now with not really much to do, we'll just kind of discuss, what they could be looking for or looking to do. But again, the free agent class this year is not strong just because most guys extended with their teams already. Alex Tuch was the big free agent. He went to Washington on a sign and trade. He was never really a fit here anyway. So there's a few guys out there, but I don't think there's really any targets for the Islanders. I think it'd just be depth guys. But anyways, before we get going, I want to remind you to follow us on social media, where I've been putting out content on Instagram, TikTok, and X. You could follow us at On Isles Time, ONISLESTIME, and then subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple, or Spotify. All right, so yeah, this whole thing started with Brady Tkachuk getting traded from the Sens to the Florida Panthers, and now they've kind of got a super team going down there. And with them and the Hurricanes, we talked about winning the Cup in the last episode and how good the Atlantic Division is. All these other teams are improving. Teams in the Metro are improving. So it just puts the Islanders in a spot where it's like, obviously their goal is to get into the playoffs. The ownership wants that, and they want to get in and play competitive hockey and keep this team kind of together. But it's not even, their odds of making the playoffs next year compared to last season are way worse, because now every team around you is getting better, and the Atlantic's going to take probably both wild card spots anyways, because that whole division's loaded. And now Washington getting better, they're probably the number 2 behind Carolina. That leaves 1 spot left in the Metro for all the teams. And you could argue every team got better except the Islanders in the Metropolitan Division. So they might be the worst team in the division this year. It's possible. Listen, they have a team where they could maybe be in the middle of the pack of it, but I don't, you could make the case that they might be the worst team. And I think it just goes to show with everything going on around. It's not just Tkachuk, but like I said, Alex Tuch went to Washington. He gets an 8-year deal. Jordan Kyrou got traded there, somebody that we kind of talked about. We spent a lot of time in the last episode talking about Jordan Kyrou. He ends up going to Washington. They traded, I believe, pick 16, Connor McMichael, and a solid prospect. So again, kind of like they could have had Kyrou for that price if they didn't use the assets on the Schenn trade. Because you're thinking first round pick. If that's a later one, you're probably going to have to give up more, maybe like an extra second or something, like a Holmstrom type player, and then maybe a Danny Nelson or something. I mean, maybe that's too much, but that seems like kind of the price there. So now Washington adds 2 studs on offense. They're better. And Pavel Dorofeyev gets traded to the Rangers for really not that much. Again, I think 2 first that are going to be late. One this year was at the end of the first round, and then I think a second as well. So the Rangers get a guy that scored 35 goals this year, really good on the power play. That's going to improve their team. And just another guy that, we didn't really think we could get, but if they had assets, maybe would have been able to pull that off. So you could just see all these teams getting better around the Islanders. And even with the Sens losing Tkachuk, they trade for William Eklund, who we had mocked to the Islanders a few times in some potential trades. So he goes for the 9th overall pick to Ottawa. So all these teams getting better, and it just puts the Islanders in a tough spot. If they want to sit around and just keep this team and not do anything, they're falling behind in that regard. So They're kind of not getting assets for the value of their players that are kind of just meh at this point, and they're going to be depreciating assets. They're not getting assets back for that, and now they're just kind of running it back, but they're not in a good spot to be running it back with this team.
Yeah, just given how, like you said, everyone's improving except the Islanders, and it's obviously very, very different than what we saw a week and a half ago when we recorded our last episode. Yeah, I mean, I think we both expected them to not necessarily take a step back, but not necessarily be in the standings where they were this year. We knew this whole year that the Metro was very weak, and that's why we were confident that they'd be able to at least be in the mix. Obviously, yeah, they're in that playoff spot for the majority of the season before falling out late. But yeah, like all these teams are going to bounce back. It's not going to be, not to say, at least for the Islanders, it wasn't a cakewalk for them. Obviously, the Canes, yeah, they were in first in the Metro the whole way. You take any of those Atlantic teams, put them in the Metro, it's a cakewalk for them as well, outside of Carolina. So yeah, all these Metro teams are going to bounce back this year. Yeah, they've all improved, other than the Islanders and I guess Columbus. And yeah, like it's at a point where Kyle Palmieri is expiring after this year. Casey Cizik is expiring after this year. And I think Andre Palat is the only other guy as well. But yeah, it's at a point where, maybe you see a Cole Yzerman jump into the lineup halfway through the year. So in Matthew Darsh's head, it could be like, okay, Yzerman is Palmieri's replacement. Anders Lee, we don't know what's happening with him. If he's back, if he's gone, we can get to that later. But I mean, maybe in Darsh's head, Victor Eklund is that guy that's, I guess, replacing Lee there. So yeah, it's going to be, not nearly as exciting of a year as this past year. Obviously, also part of that is just because, it's not Schaefer's rookie year anymore. Obviously, you still expect him to be great, still take some major strides. But I think this year is going to be tough to match in terms of that, just because of how exciting it was having a rookie do all that. But yeah, anyway, I'm going on and on. Back to the main point here. Yeah, I think this is a year where you really have to capitalize on selling off your assets that you have before, either letting them get to free agency while trying to make the playoffs, or just sitting on your hands. I think this year, like, you absolutely have to trade Palmieri at the deadline, because we have these younger guys now starting to come up that are going to be NHL ready, and just kind of step into that spot and allow for that transition into the cup window during Schaefer's prime, rather than this current window that we're seeing Barzal and Horvat.
And I said, like, Darsh, the first year didn't really do anything, kind of just ran it back. Fine. First year here, look at the players that you have, and I expected the changes to come now. Now, Stefan Rosner's reported many times that there's a plan, there's a direction for Matthew Darsh. He hasn't publicly said it, Darsh, but it's there. So the way I'm looking at it is, like you said, like, there's replacements. Like, Yzerman's going to come in and be the Palmieri replacement. Like, instead of tearing this thing down and putting all young guys in, kind of like doing a retool or like a bigger rebuild, it's just like we're slowly going to keep the team competitive, but gradually, like, take the older guys out and replace them with younger guys. I get that, but I think it's also smart. Don't make a trade just for the sake of making a trade. Like, I know we're all anxious for news or something to happen. If the Islanders had more assets, they would have been more involved in getting a guy going back their way, like a Dorofeyev, like a Kyrou. That just wasn't the case. And you could talk about the Schenn trade and the Palat trade. The Palat trade is just, these things keep getting brought up. Like, the Palat trade didn't hurt you on assets. You didn't give up anything. That one just, like, all right, now you have the player and the cap hit. Don't love it, obviously, but the Schenn one gets talked about. Like, I wish we had that first round pick, yeah, and that maybe would have helped the Islanders acquire somebody. But then again, how much better is the team getting? Like, that's really the only, like, draft tradable asset they gave up was the first and the third round pick in that trade. Still, first is important, but I think we're going to see Darsh this year. He said when he took the job, he didn't expect to make many changes for the first 2 years. Maybe that's just with the contracts they already have, long-term, bigger cap hits. So that makes some sense. But I think first 2 years, that clock starts to expire once this season starts and we see how it goes. We both said on record on this show that we were confident the Islanders would make the playoffs last year in a Metro spot if they were to make it. Well, they obviously didn't make it, and now the team is similar. They have a much better coach, so I think they're going to be improved in that department. But the competition's harder, and it's going to be harder to get in. So I think that if they decide to start trading guys, like, if the team's not going to be good this year, like, I don't think they're a playoff team right now. If you asked me before all these moves, I would say, yeah, they can maybe get in the Metro, but now I just don't see it. So I think throughout this year, and what's good about some of these contracts now, Darsh has to, he wants to wait, not trade now, not get the assets now, that's fine. But I think throughout this year coming up, we're going to have to see it if the team's not good. And I think you have a lot of options, and that's a good thing to be able to bring more in, because you're going to have guys that people will want. Like Tony DeAngelo got re-signed. We'll talk about that. Good contract, fair contract, but it's a 2-year deal. Like, he's a guy that can be traded and a team would take him. Palmieri, expiring contract. Obviously, Pajot just got re-signed, so that's tough. But Cizikas is another guy that's going to be a UFA next summer. He could go. Pelech, Pulak, if he was willing to waive. Like, these are all guys that could be interest to other teams, and that open up a lot of spots. So again, like, it all depends on how the season goes. But again, just being 500 and being on the playoff bubble is just not the best situation for this team, because then I think we're going to fall into another category of what happened last year, where you're kind of like, I don't know, do we get somebody? Are we going to even make it? And you're kind of just stuck there. Like, and listen, I don't want the team to be bad. I obviously want to be in the playoffs, but it's just a tough spot right now, just seeing how these other teams are improving. And again, like I said, I don't want the Islanders to make a trade just for the sake of making a trade, because, there's nobody really to get. But it's just, Darce, like, I'm going to sit back and believe in the vision that whatever he's trying to do, because what's the point of being so negative about it? I see all this negativity around Darce. It's like, let the guy do what he's trying to do. Like, I could be critical and not like every move, and but overall the direction is going to have to be getting younger. And while the team hasn't gotten younger yet, it's still only been a year. But again, like, the grace period's over, but we got to see some changes, I think, throughout this season.
Yeah, and it's like, just going back to what you're saying with the the young guys, right? Like, obviously that's the whole point. They're young. They're not all going to be ready at the exact same time, as much as we may like it. Obviously, I'd love to see Kashawn Aitchison and Eklund come into the lineup this year, and be NHL players, be good NHL players right off the bat. Aitchison's going to be in Hamilton the whole year. That's my that's what I'm thinking. Like, maybe a couple games at the end of the year, but he'll be in Hamilton pretty much all year. Eklund, obviously, hoping he obviously makes the NHL roster right off the bat. He looked good in the one game he played. Again, it's one game. Cole Eiserman, that's another guy you expect to see in the NHL at some point this year. But there's still question marks at this point, again, because they're young. So, yeah, the plan isn't going to be complete in a year, 2 years. Like, it's going to take some time. You got to let these guys develop and actually get to the point where obviously they can be the solution. But yeah, I'm with you where, year one is just kind of evaluation year, as Darce said when he initially took the job. Yeah, now I think you can really start the clock. He's going into the year with a coach that he hired, not the coach from a previous regime. He's gotten his hands on the team now. He's starting to, I guess, kind of mold them in his, how he sees them. So yeah, I think now you can really start that clock and see, obviously see how the team grows and performs. But yeah, there's definitely needs to be some change this year. And I think, trading Kyle Palmieri is a necessity. Because I think, he doesn't really get talked about as much as he should with last year, how big of a loss that was. Obviously, you hope he can, maybe not. I mean, obviously, repeating is going to be real tough. You hope he can just be, solid coming off a torn ACL. You never know. But if he even, was on that like 20-goal pace, somewhere around there, like, you have to trade him. That's a veteran teams are going to pay for. And that can be the first domino to fall, kind of like how Brock Nelson being traded was the first domino to fall with a little too late with Lou, but that first domino in this new, younger era, I guess.
Right. And, this is the most negativity we've had, I feel like, on the show. Like, but it's just, they're in such a weird spot, the Islanders, right now. They're just, the team is just the same. Like, and it's just so hard, because I try to be like, look, like, that roster with DeBoer, I think, could make the playoffs. Like, that's such a big change. But then it's just, you see every other team around them getting better. And it's just, the amount of the prices that these teams buying are paying, it's just, you got to think that you got to get assets back. But again, if Darce decides, like, let's clear the cap, let's start selling some guys off, and it happens, next season into the next off season, I'm okay with it. Like, if you want to keep it the way it is for now, and then it starts happening, that's fine by me. It needs to happen at some point soon, and we start to turn a new leaf, because we know he wants the identity of the team to be, fast, young, and, smart in all areas. Well, we got to, we haven't seen that. It's because it still just feels like the Lou team. We got to get to that next level. But anyways, the draft, we'll move on, was on Friday. The Islanders, like I said, had 13. I did a lot of research on some prospects, and of course, everybody I talked about in the last episode. And I think the last guy I mentioned was Malte Gustafsson. I said, "Oh, I haven't done much research on him just because I didn't really think it was a fit, and I hadn't heard much about him until the last week or so that he shot up the board and was in that Islanders range." And what do you know? That's the guy they selected from HV71 in Sweden. And the left D is the strongest part of this organization right now, just with the depth they have. Obviously, Schaefer helps. Schaefer, Pelech, and then Romanov are your three. Then you have Isaiah George, who's still knocking on the door, trying to find his way in. You have Keishon Aitchison in the system. You have, what is it, Xavier Vellieux? Is that his name? In the system? Another left-handed D that has some promise. And now you bring in another one in the draft in Malte Gustafsson. I mean, he's great. I mean, the more I've seen on him now since we've made the pick, he's huge. He's 6'4", 200 pounds, big guy, shutdown guy, defensive defenseman. He plays really well, but he's good with the puck too. He moves the puck well. He maybe can add a little more offense. I feel like we'll see that, this year in the SHL. That's where he'll be in Sweden before he comes over here. So that maybe, you want to draft him for a defensive ability, that's fine by me. I think if they can maybe move somebody to the right side, but you don't know what's going to happen in a couple of years. Like initially I was a little bit shocked and surprised. I was like, oh, that's weird. Like and I will say the board didn't fall in the Islanders' favor. I mean, I said I really wanted Wyatt Cullen. He goes 10. I like Tynan Lawrence, my second option. He went 11. So then I thought the Devils were going to take Ethan Belchez at 12, and then that would have like the three top fits for the Islanders would go right before them. They didn't go with Belchez, and then the Islanders and a few other teams passed on him too. I think he went 19 or something. He went a little bit back to Utah, but I guess they didn't want to go for him in the skating because Darsh said it was between Gustafsson and Belchez in that spot, and then the scouts said we should go with Gustafsson. So that's what they did. They took the best player available. I can't be mad at that. It's not like the NFL where you're picking for positional need. So I think that's fair. And again, he's got the tools and he seems like he's got the build. So I think it's a really good pick. And remember, they're going to have to trade somebody on the left side of the defense eventually, whether he's not going to be in the NHL for at least 2 years at a minimum. So that's fine that, there probably will be a place for him. And they're also, you could think even if they don't sell off just to sell off, these guys could be trade chips. If, a young winger or a scorer comes available, you could just, trade it. Not saying we drafted him, we should trade him, but it's tough that there are so many left-hand D, and that's the only place of, the strong suit in the prospect pool, especially with the right side having basically nobody. But again, if you have good players, that's really all that matters. Best player available. Can't be mad at that.
Yeah, there are other guys we talked about that I feel like if, they would have been available, sure, that would have been the great pick. Yeah, Gustafsson, he's fine, right? Again, I really can't say I did a whole, ton of research on these guys like I did last year. But yeah, from what I'm seeing, he was, a lot of scouts had him as the best player available at that point. Obviously, we've seen what, how important Adam Pelech is at his peak, right? That's he was one of the best shutdown guys in the league, and he was huge on those 2 playoff runs. So if you have another guy in Gustafsson here who obviously is expected to to kind of be like that, really good shutdown guy. But again, it seems like he has more offensive ability as well. Looks like a pretty good skater, smooth skater.
Definitely a good skater.
Which is obviously, you need that in this league, and that again fits into Darsh's. Yeah, fits into Darsh's identity now for what this team should be down the line. I think I texted you that night. I know there were some of the rumors about Kirill Marchenko with Columbus. So now, obviously, it doesn't have to be Gustafsson, but we have several left defensemen that, not everyone's going to be on the team at the same time, if ever, with, just how packed that side is. So yeah, just adding another valuable asset can make another one expendable now. Maybe you trade a guy like Keishon Aitchison to Columbus for Marchenko. Obviously, it wouldn't be 1 for 1. I'd have to, throw some other things in there to get Columbus to bite. But that's just an example of kind of what having so many of these guys can do. Every year we see teams trade for guys at the deadline or all throughout the year that, most teams aren't even able to get them because they're not in a position where they can trade those assets. Now we've got, more valuable assets. Again, it's just never a problem. Right. You can use those guys down the line.
I mean, look, we need obviously more forward prospects. We can use a star winger or they don't have enough center depth in the system either. But don't reach. Like Velchez would have been good. Like that wouldn't have been a reach, but like I'm okay with not going with him just because we need like a winger. I mean, he has the potential to be tremendous, like as a power forward in the NHL, but with the skating, it's a gamble. So taking the better skater, taking a guy like Gustafsson, you can never have too many good players. Like, again, it's annoying that they're all left side defensemen, but if they all end up being good, then that's a good problem to have. Like, because most of the time, every prospect doesn't pan out. So if you have 4 or 5 of these guys that all could be NHL quality, some of them, if you assume one gets traded, and then somebody can move over to the right. I mean, Isaiah George has said he's played on the right in the past. Schaefer's said it as well, and he's had to do it for a few games, not for full games, but just like filling in at different points for injuries or whatever. I remember that game that I think D'Angelo got hurt. He had to fill in on the right side for a large portion of that game. Like, listen, right now I wouldn't do that. Like, let him stay in the left. He's comfortable there, and he had obviously a tremendous rookie season, so I don't want to mess with that yet. But if it comes to it, maybe you move him to the right side, or you then have Aitchison and Gustafsson on the left side. But again, that's best case scenario. Everybody pans out. Then you have a surplus of these guys. And knowing they're all the same position, you couldn't spread it across the rest of the roster, but you're not going to complain about having all those good players, and then that gives you options on what you want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Like, we're talking about how, there's not as many forward prospects, right? Down the line, some of these guys shift over to the right. Obviously you'd like to see all the young guys in and hitting their ceilings, but yeah, that's just probably not going to happen. So yeah, you trade a guy down the line, again, whether that's one of these prospects or maybe like a Pelech or Romanov, so like one of the current guys, get some help up front for get another forward, get a young winger like Marchenko or someone else. Yeah, good players obviously are a good thing. I don't know why I feel like, we're just kind of repeating the same thing over and over again. Yeah, it is. Obviously you do wish there was more, I guess, equality across each position in terms of with how the Islanders prospect pool looks right now. But yeah, there's still plenty of time to make decisions on these guys. Like, Gustafsson's 18, just turned 18 earlier this month. Like 3 years from now, who knows? Maybe he's only playing on the right side in Sweden. Like there's so much that can change from now and the time that he's actually an NHL regular. Team's gonna be looking very different by then. So not too worried about it. Obviously would have liked. I was talking about Ryan Lynn last week. Obviously would have liked a right defenseman, but again, I'm not upset with this.
Right. It's like, but they were in a weird spot in the draft. So, like Lynn didn't end up going till 21. Like he fell a little bit. So you wouldn't want to reach on a guy like Lynn, as good as he would have been, and maybe like that's where a trade back could have fit. But, just draft good players. That's really all it is. And, with the way the board fell, it was just a weird spot. Like there's, no flash there. Not a lot of, offensive guys. I didn't love the 2 Finnish guys, like I said, that were on the board there. And obviously Hemming went next. So, that's just how it is. And, we're building a Swedish empire here with Gustafsson, Holmstrom, Eklund, and Heineman. So get some Swede power. Listen, big guy. I'm, no flash, but we'll be happy with the pick of Malte Gustafsson. Can't complain there. Just caught us by surprise, and I didn't really see it coming, to be honest. But happy with it now after looking through it and going through some research. But we'll talk about the other couple of picks the Islanders made. I don't know much about these guys. First was their next pick, which was in the 4th round, because the Islanders didn't have a second or a third, which obviously wasn't great. But they got Lincoln Keene in the 4th round at 141st. Not at 109th overall. Their next pick was 141st. He's a right side defenseman. He was another shutdown guy. Plays for Arizona State in the NCAA, and could be another fit. But they decided to add 2 right-handed defensemen. They also drafted Vladimir Dravecki. That was at 141 in the 5th round. So these guys are both bigger defensemen, and obviously playing at the college level. Then I've heard Dravecki was kind of buried a little bit on the really stacked Brantford team in the OHL. He got traded to Guelph, so he's going to have a bigger role this year. And they're saying he has a lot of the tools to maybe be ranked higher than where he was drafted if things go well. There's a lot of good word about him around there. And I think something of note is that Jay McKee was the coach of Brantford last year and had him on the team, again, like buried a little bit on the lineup just because they were so good and they obviously had a really strong season. But, now he's the Hamilton coach. So I'm sure he was in that room and said, this guy has it. So I trust the judgment there, and the development there. So I think that's a good value pick. Again, not that I knew who really any of these guys were in the later rounds, but just hearing that after, I think those two guys, fit them all. Two right side defensemen, something we need, and just more throws at the board.
Yeah, like it's once you get out of that top, really that top 30, like, and even I mean even you can even say the line is earlier. There's just so many. Some guys are like not that far off that go early in the second round and then like maybe mid fourth round. Like there's really not a huge difference that you might think there would be, which is why so many all these mock draft boards vary so much. Yeah, definitely. Adding two right D men. Like I think we only had one. It was Tomas Machu was the only right defenseman in the system. That was actually drafted by the Islanders. I believe I don't remember who posted that. I saw something about that. Never ended up verifying, but I believe that's what it was. So obviously adding some more depth there, just because again you need guys to play for again Hamilton down to the ECHL. Also of note, I gotta throw it in here. Ryan Healy from Minnesota, another right defenseman there coming out of Harvard. He'll probably be in Hamilton this year. So yeah, just loading up there. And then yeah,
And I
obviously
love that, by the way. I mean, just you brought it up, but just that trade they gave is just future considerations going the other way. So I mean, no guarantee he signs because they'll lose his rights in August. But low risk, like you never know. He played 4 years at Harvard. Maybe he's not an impact NHL player, but you got to think he's a guy who will go to the AHL. Hopefully, have some success, and then maybe if he plays well, he'll have a chance. I mean, he was the second highest scoring defenseman, I think, on Harvard this year, and to play 4 years in college. Not everybody does it, but he's well rounded. He's ready for the pros now, and you might get lucky in a guy like that. Like just hey, let's take this guy's rights. He's not going to sign there, or Minnesota didn't want him, and adds to your organizational depth. So I like that a lot. I think they should be doing a lot more trades like that. I think we said that in the last episode. Like they should kind of buy low on some people, and I like the idea of saying like, listen, if you're giving up a late round pick or conditional picks, do more trades like this. Like get a young guy to just take a chance on and just build that organizational depth, and maybe one of them you get lucky and they turn into a top player.
yeah, exactly. Never hurts. Zero risk here. I believe he's going to be at Dev Camp this upcoming week. So yeah, I mean, see all the facilities and everything, kind of get more used to I guess the organization's vision. So I mean, obviously, yeah, you hope that he signs. Yeah, I think it's August 15th would be the day his rights expire. But yeah, giving up nothing like there's really no way to lose that trade. So
Darch is
never gonna,
back. He won a
yeah.
trade.
Oh yeah, never gonna complain with that. So yeah, we'll see what happens there. So yeah, there's three right defensemen added, and obviously two through the draft, one
Right, like
through that
nobody of
trade.
like elite caliber, but again, just the more guys you have helps. And
Exactly.
something on Keene from Arizona State, second youngest defenseman in college hockey this year. He's 17 years old. Keaton Verhoff was the younger one, but so it's I always like taking young prospects that show promise because then you kind of get them a little bit later than they really should go just because of the age and the production isn't there yet. So then you might see a big boost from year 1 to year 2. And then speaking of Keaton Verhoff, I heard the Islanders actually tried to trade up with San Jose at 9 to maybe go up and get Verhoff. Didn't really have the assets to pull it off and didn't. Obviously waited back and got Gustafsson, but that would have been great. I like the thought there. And apparently Darch was involved in a lot of these trade discussions for these players that went around the league. Maybe he was just saying that, but he said he was involved. He just didn't really have the ammo or just the the need to do it. So I get that, but he says he was working the phones. He was involved in these things. But yeah, the Islanders had these three right side defensemen, something good for the system. And then looking at the last two picks, they picked some forwards after taking three defensemen with their first picks. They took Artem Mayuk and Robert Cowan. So two, I think a center and a winger there. But Cowan played for Western Michigan this year. He's from Edina, just like Anders Lee. And then Mayuk, if I'm even saying that right, had 39 points in 54 games playing in the MHL. So like basically the AHL of the KHL. So again, don't know too much about these guys, but I mean, seems like fine picks, just late rounds. I don't, I'm not a prospect guy. I don't know anything about all these guys, but so I don't want to pretend like I do. But hopefully works out. One of them ends up being a legit player. But moving along, I think that'll wrap up the draft discussion. Unless you have any more thoughts on it. Again, only 5 picks, not really any movement. Islanders didn't make any trades during the draft, so pretty straightforward this year after all the craziness and pomp and circumstance of last year. But got a solid prospect added to the pool. Can't complain about that. And looking forward to next year where they have every single pick.
Yeah, I will say I was really hoping they'd go ahead and draft Parker Trottier. I think that just would have been really cool. Brian Trottier's grandson. I believe he went to Montreal eventually. So
Yep.
I mean, that was like the one guy that I don't even know anything about him as a player, but I was just like, yeah, that would have been really cool to see. Didn't happen. It is what it is. Yeah, that's all I have on those later round picks. Because yeah,
Yeah, no, that would have been
I'm
cool.
not gonna act like I know anything.
I didn't even know he was in the draft until day 2 of the draft. So but yeah, cool story. Would have been nice, but again, not that big of a deal. All right, let's shift to free agency. Tony DeAngelo is back. There was discussion on would it happen. I thought it would, and it ends up getting done. He gets a 2-year extension with an annual average value of $4.5 million. I like it. I mean, there's always people that'll say overpay. It's every contract, and it's not because the cap's going up, okay? Because that's the excuse for everything now. But I think it's just fair value. He had, I think last year was what, a 1-by-1. He's like he signed the deal coming out of Russia. Then all right, now you had a good start. We'll give you 1 year again, like prove you could do it over a whole season. And he put up a lot of points for that 1 year. I mean, he was solid. So, we know the defensive game isn't his strong suit. You know what you're getting at it, Tony. And just given what they had as far as right side and puck moving, I think it's fair. It fits the timeline. Like I said, if the team's bad, you could easily trade him and get like a 3rd round pick for him, or more, depending on what somebody want to give up. But I think it's just perfect for that reason. Like you have him, he's good for your team now, good value. You're not really paying him too much. They didn't give him term. That would have been the issue. If they gave him 3 or more, you kind of be like, all right, like a guy that's not strong defensively, giving him a long-term contract. But I think it's fair. Good amount of years, good amount of money. He's going to help the team now and then could be traded for an asset. So, happy to have him back given what was out there. And, it's just good for Tony. So good for the team, good for Tony.
Yeah, like this it's fine. Like it's 2 years, $4.5 million. Again, that 2 years is kind of fitting in when that the team's gonna look real different in 2 years as some of these young guys start to come in. So again, it's another contract that's expiring as you would hope someone would be ready to take his spot. So just giving Darce that flexibility for for when that contract expires and these young guys are expected to be taken over the team. Yeah, I mean DeAngelo's fine. Obviously the power play just sucks in general. Not necessarily on him. But yeah, I mean, he's obviously good. You have him quarterback in the second unit. Hopefully this year there's some more positive strides on the power play. I mean, we say that every year. We've seen what happens, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, 35 points this year in 76 games. We saw how important he was to the team because of how bad it was when he was hurt. So then, yeah, he's a big part. Obviously, him and Barzal are very close. He's a good, like everyone in the room loves him, despite what some people may want to say, given his history. It's all good on Long Island for him. So yeah,
Right.
happy to have him back for another 2 years. And yeah, excited to see what.
I mean, listen, all that stuff was true in the past, but I mean, he obviously has matured and gotten over that. So, everybody likes him here. So, and he seems to like it here. He's active on social media. Like he's always, talking to the fans and stuff. So he's happy to be around, and I always appreciate that. So, yeah, he deserves to stay a little bit longer. And, I think again, it's fair. It's a fair deal for all parties. Like he gets what he deserves, and the team isn't really handicapped for too long. So the big one though is Anders Lee, who we've kind of discussed. I think we spent some time in the last episode. Now we're really getting down to it. Still no contract. I always said I had the feeling that if he was coming back to the Islanders, that it's going to happen before July 1st. Well, that's still a possibility because again, today is Sunday, June 28th. Free agency starts on Wednesday, on July 1st. So this is going to come out on Monday the 29th. So it could, have already happened. But he still could sign with the Islanders after July 1st, and free agency starts. I just feel like it's unlikely. Like, I feel like if the Islanders were going to get it done with him, it would have been done already. That's just how I feel. But once he's out there and he's going to talk to more teams, he'll probably be able to get what he wants to get, or maybe get the term that he could want. Like a team like, not that he would go to Florida, but we've seen like with the Marchand contract, like less money for longer term. Would a team that's like, we're close to winning, but we can't afford, say 3 years Anders wants at like a higher cap hit, but we could stretch him out longer and we might have to get bit on it in a few years from now, but to pay a lower cap hit to add him on a good team, that's something that might interest him to be like, look, like I'm 36. How many more years do I have left? And maybe I take a lesser cap hit, but a longer deal. Again, I don't know what he's looking for. I think we know he wants the term, so that's probably what he wants. The money, they said in the Islanders negotiations with his camp, the money's not the issue. At least that's what I've heard. So it's got to be the years, and I think Darsh is sticking to his guns here. I mean, like I want Anders back, but I don't want it for too long. And I agree with that. Like, listen, I think regardless, I want him to go, as sad as it is to say, just to start shaking things up and kind of move into a new era. But again, who knows what's going to happen? I still think, if I had to guess right now, I think he's leaving. That's what I expect. But again, a lot can change.
Yeah, I mean, I feels like every week I'm like 1 week I'll be he's staying, the next week I think he's leaving. I think from what it sounds like, yeah, like you said, it comes down to term. I think Darsh is really just gonna have his line and he's not gonna cross it. I don't know what that line is. My guess would probably be 2 years. I know me personally, I would only give him 2 years max. Yeah, just like DeAngelo, right? That's another contract that would be ending kind of as this transition is coming to an end where, again, these younger guys are in the lineup full time. Yeah, I mean, Anders Lee, obviously, 923 games as an Islander. It would suck to see him go. It would be weird to see him in another jersey. Like you said, I thought it would have been done by now if it was going to happen. Still got a couple days before July 1st, but yeah, I mean, if he could go out, it could be like last time around where he goes out, he talked to some other teams. I think it was Chicago was the main one back in 2019. And then he ends up coming back to the Islanders. He signed that 7x7. Maybe it's a similar thing this year where he goes out, he talks to some of these other teams, sees what they're offering, and then in the end decides to go with what Matthew Darsh is offering. So we'll see. I don't want him gone. But, he's 36 years old now, 35, about to be 36. Like, it would not be the end of the world to have that spot open where obviously you hope a guy like Eklund can, jump in right away and be just as productive.
Right. And, with Palmieri coming back into the lineup, it's just a lot to look at. But like you said, I think he's going to go out there and talk to other teams. Like I said, I think he's going to, if he goes to free agency, I think he signs with another team. But I'm sure that any team that offers him a contract, he will go back to the Islanders and say, would you give me this? I really feel like he would. Now, the Islanders aren't, obligated to agree to that, but I think that he's been here, that he would go back to them and say, can you do this? But again, I feel like he's not coming back just for the reason that if it's the years that's holding them up and he gets the years from someone else, he's going to go where he's going to get that term. And I just don't see that happening here, which I get it for his sake, but the Islanders, if they can't afford to give that term, I mean, they just can't, at least to Anders Lee. But we'll see about that. Again, we'll do one more episode probably maybe in like a week or two once the main section of free agency is kind of completed. Again, nothing going to be too crazy this year with the crop that's out there, but we'll do an episode to kind of recap the season and put a bow on everything before we get like to the deep off season where there's literally nothing. But again, unless something crazy happens the whole summer, then we'll pop back on for something. But the other bit of news, Semyon Varlamov is going to be the backup plan for next year per Darsh. He said he wants him to start like 25 to 30 games if possible, so like the true backup role. I get it, he's back, but it's a little bit risky. I think he said he wants to try to bring in another guy as like a security option. Could be David Riddick. I don't know if that's going to happen, but again, not that many goalies out there, so you're betting on Varlamov. It could be a really risky idea.
Yeah, I know he looked good in Bridgeport, and I think it was 2 conditioning games that he had played at the end of the year. But yeah, like you can't just have a guy who hasn't played an NHL game in almost 2 years. You can't just throw him right into that backup role immediately and expect him to be what he was before, or even like 80% of what he was. Like, I believe it was a double knee replacement, which sounds crazy. I don't know if there was ever, I think it was Wall that said it, so I don't know if that was actually what happened. But like, just obviously it's a major injury. It's taken him this long to get back. Obviously, yeah, you're hoping that he can become what he was before, but he's, I think, 38 now, 39. Like, that's just probably not going to happen. So yeah, you don't want to go into the year with the expectation that he's still going to be, like, it's just going to be a smooth transition to having him back. So yeah, having another option would be good. I know Tristan Lennox had that one game he came in briefly, and that the game that we like to say got us Matthew Schaefer, that 9-1, 9-2, whatever it was, came in, gave up a goal, and then got pulled. Maybe he's that guy. Maybe he just gets more of a look. It's tough to say because I
There's
don't
not
think
enough organizational depth in goaltending.
yeah, and I also just don't think you can carry three goalies, isn't like how we did with Halak,
The
Greiss, and
three-headed
Berube.
monster.
Oh yeah, Cappy's favorite.
Oh, Cappy.
We won the face-off.
We did win the face-off.
Yeah, I don't want to just go and have that as the goaltending plan for the year, just because I want to see more guys get a shot. But it sounds like that might be like a realistic option.
I think they should do like a Hogberg type of thing. Like obviously Hogberg wasn't great, but you sign him as like your AHL starter, and then he can come up and be the backup if needed, or give you like a spot start here and there. If there's somebody out there like that, I don't know, but just they need more goalies in the system because it's kind of been a problem. That's why trading away Gidloff in the Schenn trade was a little bit odd to me, just because they don't have that many goaltenders. But yeah, hoping Varley works out because it's I'm happy to see him back. Everybody loves him, so that first game that he does get to start, he's going to get a great standing over from the crowd, especially when he comes out on opening night. It's going to be awesome, and he definitely deserves that. Some other guys that are a bit lower ranked, but Adam Boqvist is not getting a qualifying offer. He's gone. We suspected this. He was not good for the Islanders. Good guy, but obviously didn't work out. Probably going to go back to Europe, I would think. I don't know what team he would be on. And then our two RFAs are Gatcomb and Shabunov. Gatcomb, I don't know. If they find a way to move Kyle McLean, then maybe Gatcomb stays. Depends what Pete DeBoer likes, what he wants. But again, I have no idea. I haven't heard anything on Gatcomb, so we'll see what they decide to do there. And then Shabunov, his camp probably wants more playing time. If DeBoer is willing to give him a chance, I feel like they'd have him come back. Couldn't get into the lineup. He barely played in the second half of the season. That was under Waugh, so hopefully he does get a chance to come back. I've been very adamant about Shabunov deserving a chance. I know you feel the same way. Both thought he kind of got a raw deal, didn't get to really play, show off his ability, or really improve with the team being in that playoff position most of the year. He didn't get to draw back in, but I hope they could find a way, even if it's just for 1 year, just to give him a chance again. I mean, that might take him to UFA status, I believe, right? But I still think it's worth it. At least 1 year, and then if he has a great year and you have to pay him, then that's a good problem to have.
Yeah, I like Shabunov a lot. He's so talented. It's tough because I know this year the whole thing was we had a million middle six wingers. So it was tough for him to really get that spot and run with it. I'd love to see him, at least get one more year. I'm trying to remember. I believe he only played one game under DeBoer, and then he got hurt for those last couple games. But from what I remember, he was talking positively about him. I know he also talked. DeBoer also talked high on Isaiah George. So I mean, those are two guys there that I'd like to see. Obviously, get more of a shot this year. Very different situations with the D being as locked in, I guess. But yeah, Shabunov I think should be back. I can see him taking one more year. I don't think he's going to extend for several years at this point. Wants to just get one more opportunity to solidify him as someone who can play in the NHL. Yeah, and then we'll see from there. But yeah, he's a guy that I think would be, when given the opportunity, I think he could be a pretty solid player for us.
I mean, again, he's another guy if he comes back and he's having a strong year, but they don't really see him in the long-term plans that could get traded too. So, like Max Siplikov traded again. He's on Calgary now. He was in the Simon Nemec trade, which was pretty interesting to see. Yeah, so as far as trades go, there's some rumors been surrounding Alex Romanov with the whole logjam on the left side. Right now, it's probably his lowest value, given that he's only played 15 games last year due to injury. But I don't know. I think now is not the right time to trade him. He has a no trade kicking in on July 1st. That complicates things in the future. I feel like I'd rather Pelech go right now. But again, neither are probably going to end up happening. His name's just out there. The guy that probably will be traded, I think, is Anthony Duclair. They're just going to find some team to dump him on. Probably wouldn't get a return, but it doesn't really matter much. Some bad team, I think, would take Duclair.
Yeah. Just real quick with Romanov, because I see it all over the place. The no trade kicks in next July 1st, not this year.
All right, so we have a year.
Yep. Yeah, kind of. I've seen that all over the place as well, that it's a bunch of people are thinking it's this Wednesday, but no, there's still another year to move him before that no trade clause kicks in.
So then again, he could come in and prove that he's solid. It all just depends on the development of, how does George look? How does, Aitchison look? If, whatever they want to do, it depends on that. So, I mean, I got to think one of him or Pelech is gone by next offseason. Who it is. I mean, Pelech's the older one. Maybe they could even both be gone, given depends on the development of players and what offers are out there. You never really know, but that's come up. And, I don't think now is the right time as far as Romanov. And for other people, yeah, but not Romanov. But his name's been coming up a lot. And then, that's about it on everything. I mean, as far as the off-season preview goes, I mean, we kind of discussed everything that has been in the news, and just free agency, more so for that, is just not really many names out there, not many fits. Like Marchment's been mentioned. Oh, maybe the Islanders would want him. Pete DeBoer coached him. I don't see that. Probably wants like a term and be a sizable chunk of money. Kind of fits the mold of what they already have. I feel like that doesn't really move the needle for me. And then who else is out there? Like, I can't think of anybody notable. Like, they might sign like somebody or two, just like a goalie, and then random depth pieces, but nobody that comes to mind that's like a fit.
No, it's going to be like the Ethan Bear signing July 1st last year.
Yeah,
It's
like they're
a
gonna
guy like
sign a
that,
couple
like,
NHL
oh, okay.
players too for Hamilton, so things like that.
Yeah, nothing notable. It's just funny because how you look like a year or two ago, how hyped this free agent class was with all the guys that were supposed to be free agents.
Yep,
And
it's
then,
true.
yeah, here we go. Mason Marchment is the prize everyone's
Well,
trying
it
to
was
get.
Alex Tuck, and he got signed and traded the week before.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
it
it's
was
not a whole lot of
McDavid,
options this year.
Eichel, Panarin, Kaprizov,
Kempe,
Kempe. Yeah, crazy.
yeah,
Anders Lee is
but
the premier free agent.
there we go. What year is
But
it?
I think that'll do it for this episode. Draft, like you said, over and done with. Free agency getting underway. Hopefully things go well for the Islanders. Happy to have Malte Gustafsson in the system. Hopefully all these new prospects will come through. Development camp is starting, I think, tomorrow, and on Wednesday, the 1st, is the annual blue and white scrimmage. So should be a lot of fun. See some content from those guys. Always good to see everybody in the Islanders gear for a few days before things slow down for the foreseeable future. But that's going to do it for On Isles Time, episode number 25. Make sure to follow us again on social media at On Isles Time, ONISLESTIME, on Instagram, TikTok, and X. And then subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Spotify, or Apple. Once again, I'm Brendan Yerkes alongside Cole Healy. Thanks so much for tuning in to On Isles Time.